For a franchise that's known for having lots of terrible sequels, this might be one of the worst.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. And being that I've spoke about almost every other Halloween movie in the franchise, I figure it's about time I talk about the newest entry, Halloween Kills. A movie which some people seem to have very strong opinions on, with some people even claiming that this is in fact one of, if not the worst Halloween films. And I find that really laughable, given the fact that we're talking about a series that featured a reality TV show in the Myers house hosted by a karate-kicking Busta Rhymes, a cult that brainwashed Michael and made him impregnate his niece, and whatever the fuck Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 was supposed to be. I'm sorry, but there is no way that you can convince me that this is one of the worst Halloween movies. And right now, I'm about to tell you why. The flashback sequences are some of my favorite moments in the film. I really like how they were able to, for the most part, make this look like it took place right after the first movie. You know, from the set designs, to the way that it was shot, to the filters. It almost perfectly captures the atmosphere of the original Halloween. Where it falls short, however, is where I think a lot of this movie might have fallen short. And that's in showing too much. Look, I know in filmmaking it's show, don't tell, but there's also such a thing as leaving a little bit to the imagination, which this movie did not whatsoever. The way the original Halloween and Halloween Kills goes about the dead dog in it, to me, is perfectly symbolic of these different methods of filmmaking. In the original, Sheriff Brackett and Dr. Loomis come across a dead dog. The dog is never shown, it's just mentioned and leaves a little bit to the imagination. They talk about the gruesome state that the dog is in, and it gives us a bit of an idea of what they're talking about. In this movie, not only do they show us the pile of fur and blood that was once a canine, but they also shine a light on it and hold on the shot. The movie doesn't leave anything to the imagination. It's not subtle or simple in the way that it presents its kills. It's typically loud and extravagant and ridiculous, which is strange to me because that's not the Michael Myers from the first movie or the last movie that they were building up. This one felt a little bit more like they were trying to branch out from the tone and the feel of the original Halloween and move on to do its own thing. I like that they were able to somehow resurrect the late Donald Pleasance, not via deepfakes, but through the combination of practical prosthetics, a look-alike, and a sound-alike voice actor. The shots of Loomis are mostly from afar, but there are a couple close-ups. And yeah, that really looks like Dr. Loomis. The flashback scenes help add to the overall lore the series is establishing. It expands on the night that he came home, and it adds to the overall tragedy that took place on that night. The flashbacks also give Officer Hawkins' vendetta against the Shape more justification, now giving him an official history with the classic killer, with one scene feeling ripped straight out of the last movie. In hindsight, adding a little bit more significance to that moment that happened before, and also after, depending on timeline and chronologically speaking. I like the fact that this film was able to dig up characters that were present in the original by putting them in a giant Michael Myers survivor support group, even if the characters are now aged 40 to 102. It's a quick way of naturally introducing them to the story without it feeling too heavy-handed. Having Lonnie, Tommy, the original Lindsay, and Nurse Marion come back is kind of a nice way of engaging the core fan base of the original. And for me, it's a welcome addition to the story. The movies could have gone without them, sure. You know, there was no problem with approaching this trilogy sans past movie characters, outside of Laurie and Michael, but I'm really glad that they were included. You know, it's nice to see what's new in these characters' lives, while also wondering if these characters' lives will in fact be ended by the end credits. I think it was a really smart call bringing them in. Having these characters come back is of course more than a little bit fanservice-y, but it's warranted fanservice. The first movie was nostalgia-based too, bringing back Michael and Laurie, referencing Loomis, but what made it stand out is the fact that it did new things with these characters. This movie kinda does the same, and it kicks things up a notch with the introduction of Sheriff Brackett. And holy shit did that take me off guard at first. These characters don't just show up as a wink and a nod to the audience. They're not cameos or Easter eggs for us to point at while watching. They represent and illustrate the impact the phenomenon of Michael Myers has on this community. Michael's mere presence is enough to frighten Lonnie as a child and give him nightmares for years. He's haunted by the Shape who he really only shared a passing glance with. Tommy's childhood encounter with Myers has made him forever paranoid with fear, and that fear develops into an aggressive need to defend himself even when there's no danger present. Lindsay spends the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, waiting for the man who almost killed her as a child to return. And Nurse Marion pretty much just stays the same, but she's more scared and older now, so I'm more fearful for her. Michael Myers has a presence greater than his person. He doesn't just kill his victims, he ruins the lives of those who survive him. In the last movie, we saw what Michael Myers did to a whole family. How he affected multiple generations of Strodes and Nelsons. And in Halloween Kills, we're seeing what Michael Myers did to a whole town. Olaf Haddonfield knows and fears Michael Myers, and they allow that fear to consume them and turn them into an angry mob. An angry mob blindly seeking revenge, thinking it's justice. A blind, angry mob who leads to the death of an innocent, troubled man. All because they thought they were taking the fight to Michael. I think we're supposed to learn something there, but the same mob gets together and tries to fuck up Michael at the end of the movie anyway, so I think that idea falls a little bit short when you remember that this movie takes place directly after Halloween 2018. It's supposed to happen right after, the same night, meaning no one knows that Michael has gone on another massacre. They're left mostly with the memory of what he did 4 decades ago, when he killed 5 or 6 people. And don't get me wrong, those are big numbers and that's a real tragedy, but I don't know if an entire town is going to be in complete hysteria after finding out an elderly killer escaped 40 years after his capture. It's a little bit far-fetched and it's very excessive. I also love that the first movie had Laurie pre-plan a fight that really might have never happened. She spent the last 40 years waiting for Michael, whom she thought was waiting for her, only to learn in this one that she wasn't really ever on his radar. There is nothing special about Laurie Strode. She and Michael don't have some otherworldly or weird connection. She's not Michael's sister. She's not the one that got away. She's the one that got in the way. Michael Myers has never specifically been after her. He was after his next kill, whomever that may be. And it just so happened that it was her. He wasn't tracking her down after his release. Both she and Michael's doctor made sure to put him on her path. But otherwise, he couldn't be bothered. I like this change to the continuity. I like that Michael is motivated solely by bloodlust. And I like that Laurie doesn't matter, because in a weird way that makes her matter so much more. The fact that she wasn't predestined to be the badass that she becomes, the fact that these problems weren't something that she was born into, but instead something that happened due to circumstance, it makes it that much more interesting, because it means that all of this is meaningless. This could have happened to anybody. It just so happened to be Laurie. She's now the one tracking down Michael Myers, as opposed to it being the other way around. That's a development that somehow changes the roles of the characters in the cat and mouse game, but still keeps them true to the characters from the original film. I like the world that these movies set up. I find myself enjoying the new characters they introduce, even if I know they're not going to be sticking around. I have mixed feelings on the whole bedroom window lore. I think it's an interesting addition to the backstory, and it's a vague enough development that presents more questions than answers. Who knows if there is in fact an ultimate payoff to this, or if this is just a weird little inclusion to the new Michael Myers origin. It may mean something, it may mean nothing at all. But I personally kinda like this inclusion, mainly because of the presentation of Michael Myers in this brand new timeline. Forgetting Halloween 2 and everything that came after it, having this canon only consist of the first film and the 2018 film of the same name means that we really know precious little about Michael Myers. We have no idea about the man under the mask. We know so little, in fact, that the revelation that he likes a view is now something to note. I enjoy that there's a distance between the movie-going audience and the killer. There's not 9 movies of backstory that we need to watch to understand. Like his victims in the movie, we kinda just take Michael Myers as he is. I mean, if you came across a psycho killer, would you really want to get to know them on a personal level? Would you want to know what led up to these events? You know, like where did it all go wrong? Would you really like to sit down and know what led up to the events of them stabbing you to death? The fact that we're presented with so little knowledge about Michael Myers kind of disconnects the world around him away from him, and disconnects us, the viewers, from the character. We don't know why he's doing what he's doing. Is there a reason? Is it reasonless? Is this all just random violence by a silent man who has a mask fetish?
I don't know!
I don't know. Maybe. But that's why I like this movie and these movies. There's a complete unpredictability to them. You never know if characters new or old are gonna survive. No one is safe. Man, woman, child, dog, gay, straight, black, white, young, old, cop, firefighter, medic. Dog? Did I mention he kills dogs? This Michael Myers is an equal opportunity mass murderer. And a real sick fuck. I like that we don't ever fully understand his actions. Maybe they're not to be understood. Maybe he himself doesn't understand why he does what he does. He just feels compelled to do it. It kinda ties in perfectly with a bunch of Dr. Loomis quotes from the first movie. Why he kills who he kills, why he lets some roam free, how he allowed himself to be put away for 40 years, but completely wrecks a whole city of people with weapons. What I love about this movie is that it takes chances. The Halloween franchise has been around for 4 decades, with Michael killing his victims in various ways and various means. But these movies still manage to find a way to use the character differently. Michael Myers slaughters entire mobs of people in this movie on 2 separate occasions. One of which is a fire department. And hold on, let me just check how plausible this is. I got a friend. I'm just gonna see. Yeah, okay, never mind. That didn't help anything at all. My point was gonna be that I don't think that's exactly a simple task, but I'm sure Paul has illustrated that in his own unique way. I really like the fact that Laurie and Hawkins are confined to hospital beds the whole movie. It sells their injuries at the hands of Michael, and it really makes these events feel like there's some weight behind them. Like they take place in some realm of reality. You know, that is until the ending where Michael gets the ass-whooping Busta Rhymes could only dream of giving him, and Michael Myers just shakes it off, gets back up, and then kills everybody who surrounds him. I don't know, I thought that one was a little bit much. I like that this movie isn't a movie exclusively dealing with Laurie or her family. We get to see a whole bunch of characters shine outside of her family tree. As a matter of fact, Laurie and her family kind of become a subplot in this movie, and I don't entirely mind it. They take a backseat to the rest of Haddonfield, who are dealing with Michael Myers in their own way. I like that we don't see too much of Laurie, but I also think it's incredibly obvious that that was done more so to save her for the big finale. As maybe 3 Michael Myers and Laurie Strode confrontations back to back to back might just be a little bit too much. That's why every other timeline has the good taste to kill her off after 2 appearances. And while I've mentioned all of those positives about the movie, I think the problem that people have the most is that this movie is very obvious for what it is. It is a filler movie. It's really obvious that this movie only exists to try to take the narrative from point A, that being the 2018 Halloween, to point B, that being the finale of this trilogy of movies, Halloween Ends. Is it necessary? No, not entirely. I still like it for what it is, but if this trilogy was a video game, then Halloween 2018 would be the main story, and Halloween Kills wouldn't have been the next disc, it would have been some optional DLC. Very good DLC, mind you, but still an unnecessary addition. This movie is nowhere near as bad as a lot of people have made it out to be, but I think it definitely falls short when compared to the movie that came before it. This film only exists to bridge a gap between the movie that came before it and the one that will come after. This movie was made to add to the legend of Michael Myers. I said in my last video that by retconning so much that it's brought Michael's kill count down to 1 hand instead of several hundred bodies. This movie tries to make up for that. And in doing so, I think they might have gone a little bit too overboard. You know, to me, what made Michael Myers so interesting was that Michael Myers wasn't this completely unstoppable force. He wasn't immortal. It wasn't impossible to kill Michael Myers. It was just very, very improbable. I kind of felt like this version of events was moving toward that narrative, but if the ending of this movie didn't take him out, I don't see what possibly could. Ultimately, I still really like the series thus far. It is still my personal favorite Halloween timeline. But I also think that the final installment in this trilogy will fully solidify what my overall opinion on these movies are. I'm really hoping for something that's a little bit closer to Halloween 2018 and a little bit further away from Halloween Kills. You know, fingers crossed, but still, I've liked what I've seen. With that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you for joining me. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bad time. Same bad channel.
The fuck is this man?
Austin Powers.
Doc said Michael Myers.
This is Mike Myers.
It should be the Halloween man.
There's a Halloween mask.